Sony's making a lot of noise about 2009 being a pivotal year in the life of PlayStation Portable. And it's leading by example with new handheld games based on some of the biggest Sony names due out over the coming months. The first heavyweight release of the year from the platform holder is Resistance Retribution. Spun off from the PlayStation 3 alternate history sci-fi shooter series, it's striving to be the most compelling example yet of Sony's grand gaming vision of interconnectivity between handheld and home console. And just as significant, it's a game wary of the perils of lazy porting, and so is designed from a fresh perspective with the PSP's strengths and idiosyncrasies in mind. To that end, development duties on Retribution have been passed over from series creator Insomniac to Sony's Bend studio, the team behind the impressive Siphon Filter games, and, crucially, already a PSP veteran. But before we look in detail at the series' small screen debut, let's recap on the story so far. Resistance Fall of Man was a PS3 launch title back in November 2006, and a major change of scene and pace for Insomniac, the US studio that made its name first with the ultra-cute platform larks of Spyro the Dragon, and later with the explosive cartoon invention of Ratchet and Clank. Fall of Man, however, is a grown-up, brooding beast of an FPS, set in an alternate history of 1951 as humanity struggles for survival against the alien Chimeran forces. Set in good old Blighty, never before in history has Grimsby seemed quite so exciting. Resistance 2 landed 2 years later, detailing the Chimera invasion of the US. Insomniac refined its shooter formula to magnificent effect, the game scooping 9 out of 10 in its Eurogamer review, which hailed it as precisely the sort of exclusive game that the PS3 needs, improving tenfold on its predecessor in almost every area.
Get your head down!
Retribution is a different platform, a different developer, even a different genre. But it's also unmistakably a Resistance experience. Bridging the narrative gap between Fall of Man and Resistance 2, after following Sergeant Nathan Hale's infectious exploits, gamers are introduced to a new lead, battle-hardened British Marine James Grayson.
Come on then, lead, follow, or get out of the bloody way.
And having thoroughly trashed and infected the US and UK, Resistance PSP takes up arms against the Chimera across the nations of Europe. The game switches the experience from first to third person, changing the dynamics of the action while playing to the strengths of the console and the studio. And if it looks familiar, you'd be right. Siphon Filter's successful PSP outings are the model for Resistance's handheld venture. And it's a style Bend is right at home with.
One of the things that we've always been excited about is franchise development. And we had a lot of experience with taking a console game to the handheld. And when we had the opportunity to work on the Resistance franchise, we jumped at it. To me, it was about trying to create another version of Resistance that people could play in a different setting and in a different environment.
So the general idea for the Resistance PSP is to capture the feeling and the intensity that the original PS3 game brought on a handheld experience. As we worked on creating new characters, we worked closely with Insomniac, so that was a lot of help on their end. Just trying to make everything faithful to the original.
Grayson may be a new face, but he wastes no time in making an impression. The dark, foreboding tone of Retribution is established early on when the protagonist, upon discovering his brother's body to be racked with the virus, is forced to take a decision of huge consequence.
Where our story begins is Grayson finds his brother in a conversion center being dissected, being turned into one of the menials. Because of the way British regulations worked in this alternate history, any human that's in the process of being converted has to be destroyed. So he has to kill his own brother, and that alters his character right from the beginning. And the whole game is about his journey, and in the course of the game, Grayson changes in ways that I think is going to be surprising to the player.
No doubt aware that PSP needs to sweat for the storyline to make an impression alongside its PS3 brethren, Sony has pumped some serious resources into development, Retribution boasting some of the highest production values yet seen in a PSP game.
The rendered cutscenes we're doing in a very similar style to what they did with Resistance 1, which is we have these sort of Ken Burns style narrative sequences that are narrated by Rachel Parker, and we got back the same actress that played Rachel Parker in the first game because I love her voice, and she did such a great job of sort of making it seem like it was a documentary, and I think it's pretty cool.
As the narrator of both the first game and the second game, it's really wonderful to follow the character and to follow the role play through both games. So my character steps out, as it were, to narrate the story both times, and it's lovely having that ability to do that.
Had already begun to vanish by June of 1951.
The rubber suits with ping pong balls have also been freshly dry cleaned for extensive mocap sessions.
The work that the motion capture actors and the director do together when they work on a video game is very particular. Sometimes the director wants something very specific and will make the actor do the same move over and over and over again. And it looks like it's the same movement, but with very subtle changes.
I mean, we walk around in these little spandex suits and you see yourself as a skeleton on the screen, and then you finally get a copy of the game, you know, and you're like, oh, I look really, really cool.
And the final layer of drama is applied by the soundtrack, with a live orchestra employed to complement the action with snarling brass and sweeping strings.
Video games are one of the most creative places for a composer to be right now. The technology is changing. You're using samples and even synths, creating an orchestral sort of palette of sounds. And over that, we're adding live players, especially brass, bringing emotion and bringing intensity that the samples just can't, create.
These fancy trimmings and trappings all play a vital role in setting a tone for the game that won't seem out of place to those well versed in the PS3 offerings. But in-game is what matters, and happily, Retribution's engine pumps out an experience of deliciously striking detail. As with the PlayStation 3 outings of Resistance, Retribution also makes multiplayer a priority. And given the slick work already done on this with Siphon Filter, it's easy to see why Ben got the thumbs up. 5 modes of play are available via Infrastructure and Ad Hoc: Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, Containment, Capture the Flag and Assimilation. The latter a thrillingly tense fight for survival featuring the Cloven, appearing in the series for the first time.
One of the things that Insomniac did that was really good was they focused on creating an awesome PS3 multiplayer game, and because of Siphon, we were known for our multiplayer game on the PSP, so it was a natural fit.
That's what you get with the standard Resistance experience. But if you own a PS3 and a copy of Resistance 2, then you can link up the two for an infectious orgy of interconnectivity. By hooking up the two consoles via USB and selecting the Connect PSP option in Resistance 2, you can infect your PSP, which doesn't sound particularly pleasant but unlocks a bunch of new content on PSP. Playing the single player mode while your PSP is still infected, and Grayson embarks on a special mission in which he's infected with the alien virus himself, giving him eyes straight out of a Bonnie Tyler video and the ability to regenerate health and breathe underwater, which opens up previously inaccessible parts of the game. Plus, you'll unlock the awesome Magnum with exploding shells. There's also a feature called PSP Plus. This lets you play the game using a wireless DualShock controller, dropping the aim assist, bumping up the difficulty and throwing in rumble support. Plus, if you're playing on a PSP Slim and Light or 3000, you can use the TV out to beam it all through your telly.
When we had the opportunity to work on the Resistance franchise, we jumped at it because of the experience we had, and also because we could see what we could do with the franchise and still make it feel like a Resistance game, but have it be on the PSP.
We've actually taken the game and made a totally different game out of it, but still kept the same type of feel. And what we're trying to do is try to make it appeal to the masses instead of just appeal to the hardcore market.
And if you're still not sure, you can always ask Joe's mum.
My test case will be my mom. I'll give it to her, and if she can shoot some Chimera, then I think we're successful.
You can find out whether the game delivers on its promise in Eurogamer's full review, yours to read now by hitting the red button. Resistance Retribution releases exclusively for PSP on March the 20th.
Cartwright, I'm here to bail your ass out. Again.